Welcome back everyone. So this time we're going to take a look again at single cycle waveforms on the Digitakt II. In the last video, go and watch that one, I basically ran you through my Substance preset pack, which was 64 lead and bass presets for the Digitakt II using the factory single cycle waveforms, which can be found in the plus drive if you go into the Padlots factory folder, down to oscillators, single cycle waveforms, and you get all of these oscillator sources, which are brilliant, and wavetables. And what we're going to do today is maybe teach you how to basically make your own presets. And then we'll explore some of the presets that I've made to uncover some little sound design tricks along the way. So you don't even have to buy my preset pack, you can just make your own presets. And hopefully by the end of this video, you will have the inspiration to go and do that and see what you can come up with. But if you want to cut some corners and have some inspirational presets that you can just pull out and slap onto a pattern and test, then the 64 presets of bass and synths there for you if you need it. So let's have a look at how to set up a single cycle waveform synth. Maybe what I'll do actually to start with is just create one from scratch. So let's go to clear, and then I'm just going to clear, probably the long way of doing it, just clear everything on this track here. And yes, we've got nothing running at the moment. So the way that you do it is you basically go into the sample pool, then you want to go down to an empty slot and choose the factory folder, oscillators. We won't cover wavetables right now, we'll just cover single cycles. So let's maybe start simple and just go for this acid saw, yeah? So what I'm going to do is put that into the pool, and you can see it's on A45 there. And all we get right now is just clicking. So don't worry, it does work. We just need to change this little icon here. We need to change it from forward sample and stop to forward loop or reverse loop. So we're going to go forward loop. And what that essentially does is, if we just go back to this and have a look at the waveform, that's a Saw2 waveform. It's called single cycle because it is literally one cycle of that waveform. Very, very short. Very, very short and very, very clicky. So if we just change that to a loop, it's an endless oscillator that never runs out. It just keeps looping and looping and looping. Now if we change the start time or the length of it, it will increase in pitch because we're essentially speeding up that cycle. And if we just go and look at that again, you can see we're creating a shorter length. Or what we can actually do, the proper way of doing it, is to actually just increase the tuning. And you'll notice that it's going so fast now that it's not even showing us the single cycle waveform going through. So there you can see I slow it right down. You can actually see it with the human eye. But I don't know why I said it like that, the human eye, as we speed it up, it gets so fast that it's just weird and glitching out on the visuals. So yeah, it's an oscillator basically that we can tune, which is amazing because now our Digitakt II is an actual synthesizer. You could say it's a digital synthesizer or a sampled synthesizer. Some might scoff at that and say it's not real, it's not a real synthesizer, but to me, it kind of is in a way. Set it up a bit, right? So let's start maybe with the amp page, because that seems like the good place to start. We've just covered the source, we know we can tune it. Let's maybe create a bass patch here. So we'll go bass. And then what I'm going to do next is go into the amp page and we can add some release to that. Obviously we're using a mode here for this, which is AHD, which is attack, hold and decay. We can go to a classic ADSR by switching that. And then we've got the sustain level. We've got the decay there. Release, so release basically means hit it, let go and it'll carry on. Bring that back and it makes it short and snappy. And then your sustain is where you want the level of the volume to drop down to. So if I hold that, you can't hear anything, but if I bring that sustain up, you can hear, we can change the volume so we get a pluck sound, and then we hold the note. So what I'm going to do is actually just put that on maybe 100, bring that back a little bit, just so we get a little bit of a boost there. And I actually want it to kind of stop after I let go of the note, maybe just a tiny bit of release to soften it. And then what you could also do as well is, some oscillators, not this one, are quite clicky, so you can always add a little bit of attack there as well, just to soften the transient. And then we won't go into the other stuff, but basically what we'll do now is just move over to the effects page, because what I often like to do is bring up the overdrive, and I like to crank it just to give it more grip. And you can play around with the new updated version of this OS, which allows you to put the overdrive before or after the filter. We'll come on to that again later once we start playing around with the filter. You can add some chorus, which sounds great. Delay, if you go into the delay and take some of that low end away. Also, for kind of toning the oscillator, it's always quite cool to play with the bit reduction as well. So maybe what we'll do now, while we're just looking at shaping the oscillator, I might take a look at the LFOs, which is a bit more advanced, but I want to kind of leave that filter open so we can really hear what's happening to the sound. So we've got bit crushing there, we've got sample rate reduction, which can go before or after. These, experiment with these as you're building your patch. Once you add like the filter in and everything, come back to them and see if it adds anything. You can also use like a mod wheel or breath controller, like I did in the last video, to open these up as a special effect. So what I want to do now is go into the LFO, and let's do one of my favorite tricks, which is to go to tuning, put this on random, slow it right down, and put this on, actually we'll just do it free flowing like that. Bring the slew up a little bit as well, and let's take a listen to what's happening. So let's bring it to around there. So we've got this kind of unpredictability of the oscillator tuning now. What I'm going to do is just bring that up a tiny amount, like that. You should be able to hear the deviations of the oscillator there, just swaying around. It just makes it more analog. Let's go to LFO2, and then with LFO2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to tuning. Sometimes this can sound great, sometimes it can sound awful. Let's put it on 32 for now. We're going to experiment with going between these in a second. But what you want to do is move the multiplier past BPM and go into these freeform multipliers. I'm not sure if that's the right technical name for them, but that's what I'm going to call them right now. And you can hear we're modulating the tuning there. And sometimes if you can get it to sound quite cool, especially on leads. So if I just bring up the tuning a bit, let's just bring that back. And it's about how much you add in as well. Let's just change the mode to trig. We can change the wave as well, that will drastically change it. A little bit dissonant sounding. But some of the patches I made use this technique. But what I'm going to show you is another way as well. So we'll come back to that in a second, because it can sound quite dissonant. I've just realised I got rid of my tuning on LFO. Oh no, I've not. It's still there. Right, it's on number 3. It can sound quite dissonant, but what I often do is use this technique on the filter as well. So let's just shape the filter to start with. So we can bring the filter down. Let's just turn that back into a bass sound. So this is a 12 dB filter. Oh no, it's not, it's on 4. So let's go multi-mode. So this one is a 12 dB sounding filter. And you'll know that low pass is a steeper curve. So if you want like a really kind of strong filtered 24 dB Moog sounding filter, go for the low pass. If you want something a bit more kind of SH2 sounding a bit more open, letting some more top frequencies through, go for multi-mode. Or you could even go for the legacy low pass as well. Equalizer's got some cool stuff in, so, and some of the presets that I did, I use this as like a little bandpass filter and modulated it, which was pretty cool. Comb filter I used a lot in the presets as well. So some of the presets I made don't actually feature a lot of the single cycle waveform. They end up using the comb filter as a synth in itself, so a pitched synthesizer, and using the single cycle waveform as the trick. We're not going to cover that today. I might cover that in a future one. So let's go low pass 4, get a really nice bass going. And then what I sometimes do is go to the key tracking. You can either turn it all the way up or turn it up a little bit. If you turn it all the way up, what it means is the higher notes will push the filter up and even more. So if we go back to this and put it super low like that, as you go up, you'll notice that the higher notes pop through. If we go and turn that right down and then come back into this page, I can't hear those high notes anymore because the filter is so low, but then the key tracking opens it up as you go through the different notes. So let's add some envelope there. And again, we can shape this. We can add an attack. We can make it quite snappy. Add some more of that sustain in there. So if you want something quite dubby sounding, so let's just bring that back like this. If you want it really dubby sounding like that, with a nice sharp attack at the beginning, but when you hold it, you want that to kind of ring out a bit more. Just bring the sustain up. I kind of liked it when we went down an octave, but what I want to do is keep it on 0. So if we go into the filter, what we can do is we can go to octave and bring it down. There we go. And then also our on there as well, because it's a bass patch, I don't actually want much of the velocity to happen if I'm playing with real keyboards. So I'm actually going to either put it onto this one or I'm going to turn it off completely. And you'll notice that it's a bit louder now as well. Speaking of loudness and distortion, if I turn the distortion all the way up, you can hear it's quite gritty, but if you want a little bit more out of it, I found that a good way of doing it is to push this level more as well, and that'll boost it even further into the distortion to get a little bit more juice out of it. And then the other cool trick that we could do is we can now, since the new OS update, we can now move the distortion from pre-filter, which is before the filter, to post-filter. So you can imagine what that does, right? So if we add loads of distortion and harmonics before the filter, we can then tame those high frequencies with the filter by bringing it down. But what's cool to do and try is if you bang it post-filter, you're tapering all of the high frequencies out of the original source sound, which is the single source oscillator. And then what you're doing is you're distorting it after the filter. So this is only letting so many frequencies through. But when you distort after the filter, you get this really cool overdriven sound. And the Moogie preset that I made uses this. We'll come to that later, but I did it in the last video. There's basically, I think it's the fatty one. When you open up the mod wheel, it basically, and in fact, let's just go to that now. I'll show you. I'm waffling a little bit here. So if you go to load preset, let's just find the basses. I'm sure Moogie, I think it might be the fatty one. It's not. It's actually the Moog. Sub 1 does it. Yeah, the Moog Sub does it, so that noise that you can hear, and even on the low end, it's a sub, but it's not like these other subs, like the simple one where it's soft. It's got a buzz about it, and that's because what I've done is exactly what I've done in this preset that we're making now, is to taper the high frequencies off and then add them back in with a post distortion. So that's nice and subby and dubby. That's got a little bit more kind of grit and character to it. So just experiment with that as you're creating these presets. Let's add some of that chorus in there because it just sounds so nice on basses. If you want to tighten that up a little bit, you can always go into the send effects. This won't be saved with presets, by the way, but what you can do is you can go into these effects, and what you could do for the pattern is just add a little high pass in there like that. and it'll just take the low end or the sub away from the stereo image. That's without, that's with just that stereo width. Let's just experiment with these again. So bit reduction adds a bit more of that kind of like overdriven sound. Again, if you want to add some delay to this, won't save to the preset, but what you can do is you can go in and just sweeten up that. Let me go back, turn it up. Go in and just kind of take the low end away from the delay. Let's put it in stereo as well. What I'm going to do is that little trick that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to bring the delay and the reverb down. We're going to hold function, go into the setup, and what I'm going to do is go down to key tracking. So I think this was a new thing with the update as well. And what I'm going to do is go to amp effects, sorry. We'll go delay send, and on the second one we'll go reverb send. What I want to do is just come up with that. Go up 2 octaves and you can hear the delay coming through now. So delay is actually off and reverb is off, but the higher we go on the keyboard, the more of the wet effects it lets through. So really cool for doing those kind of like Bodzin-esque melodic bass lines. And then when you add those high notes in with the glides, it'll bring those through like that. And you'll notice that the bass has hardly got anything on it. A little bit on the mids. And then the highs for that kind of like extra little lead at the top, you get that. That brings me on to portamento. Let's add a bit of this in there. Bum notes. I love a good bum note. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you can add some glide in there. Let's go back to our original little idea that I didn't quite cover fully, which was adding some FM. But what we're going to do is we're going to add it to the filter. So this is a little trick that I like to do a lot. Actually, I'm still on tune, sorry about that. I was thinking to myself, why does that sound absolutely terrible? So let's try it now. There we go. That's kind of the sound I want to go for, but I want to bring it right down. What we can actually do is turn it off, right? And if you haven't guessed what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into filter, settings, sorry. I'm going to go to key tracking, and we're going to add that depth amount on the LFO1 to key tracking. So bass doesn't really have it in, but then if we just go up a couple of octaves, go back into it, just gives more character to that top end, doesn't it? So, and if we go into the key tracking, actually, let's just take a look at those keyboard octave and take a look at key tracking again. So it won't get pushed really, but it will get pushed lower on the other side there. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. So So we can hear some of it bleeding through. So this doesn't always work, but it's very cool. So when you're doing this, just experiment with the multiplier, experiment with the speed. And obviously experiment with the depth amount as well. So let's turn that off for now. It's a cool little trick. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I have used it a lot in the preset pack. I've used it sparingly and only in places where it definitely works without sounding too dissonant, unless dissonance is needed. So yeah, we've got that going on. Obviously, you can do some basic stuff as well with filter. Where am I going? There we go. Filter frequency. Also, you can do your usual stuff. Like add. Just turn that tune down a little bit. And I actually just want to get rid of key tracking. Did I get rid of that? Just turn it off like that. Right, so let's just have a little play around with this, right? So what you can do is turn it up. But what if I don't want that to kind of like play from the off? What if I want it to build up? So what you can do is use the fade. And it'll bleed in like that. Another cool little trick. There's so much more you can do with LFOs as well. I won't cover it all right now. Go for a cleaner version. I think that's pretty much it for now. So just some ways that you can basically shape single cycle waveforms using all of the different settings on the Digitakt. There's a lot more to it than this, and if you go through my preset pack, you'll be able to unpack the sound design that's going on quite easily within the different sounds. So if you find a sound that you really like, let's just go into here. Let's choose. This Atari one's pretty interesting, quite unique. So I've used a single cycle waveform. Also worth noting as well, on some of them I have used a wavetable. Maybe we'll cover wavetables in the next one. They're not perfect wavetables, but they do work. So straight away I can see I've used a comb filter. And that gives it that kind of like metallic sound. And I think it was pitched as well. Let me just go back into that and reset it. It's pitched with... Oh no, it's not pitched. It's not pitched with the key tracking, which is interesting. Let's take a look at the mods. So we've got panning. So you can see I've actually used that FM style thing here. But another trick I do is use it on the panning. Let's give it that subtle buzzing sound. Definitely experiment and play around with FM. It just adds another layer to sounds. And then we've got comb filter there, which, cool little trick that I always do. You can basically open and close the LPF, this. You can close that using an envelope, so basically using the LFO as an envelope. Because if you use this one, that actually changes the frequency, not the LPF. It's just weird that they've done it that way. And then what we're doing there, so with that one I'm using comb frequency and then just adding some wobble on it. And let's just reset the sound. Come down an octave actually. That sounds much better. Right, so with this, let's just have a listen to the mod wheel. So you can see comb filter, just adjusting that a little bit, and then breath controller. Some more effects, quite subtle actually on that sound. I think I maxed everything out, so there wasn't really much room to push stuff. Let's have a look at this one. So this one you can see I'm actually using the EQ and it's giving it that raspy sound, and I'm pretty sure that's getting modulated. Yeah, so EQ frequency. So this is getting moved around randomly. So each trig gives you a different depth amount, and it sounds great as like a bass sound. And then we've also got the bit reduction. That's getting modulated as well. And source slice. So this one is actually using a wavetable. So you can see it's picking out different sections of the wavetable, like it should be. And then let's just take a quick look. Sorry, I'm just rushing through these, just to give you some ideas of the stuff you can do. So mod wheel adds more bit reduction, more chorus, opens up the amp decay. Breath controller adds more reverb, opens up the bass filter to basically take the low end away, adds more delay. Let's just have a look at another one. Let's go to the basses maybe. Tell you what's a good one, organ dub. So I really like what the mod wheel does on this one. Breath controller does changes the, what's that we've got going on there? Oh yeah, so it changes the filter type. So yeah, let me just see what I did there. So as I bring it up, you can't see it on there, but it changes it to a high pass for the build up or the breakdown, whatever you want to call it. Effect, breath controller. You can see adding some delay and reverb, and also sculpting away some more lower frequencies with the filter bass. And then the mod wheel, increasing the resonance of the filter, adding some sample rate reduction, slightly dampening the filter envelope because I found that improved the sound when you hit the note when you want to go dubbier with it. Anyway, I think what we'll do is we'll leave it there. So we covered quite a lot of little sound design tips and tricks under 30 minutes. Hopefully that will give you enough to go away and just play around with these ideas and these concepts. If you're interested in getting the pack, then you can go onto my website link below. I'd also recommend the TECHNO drums as well. Let's just have a listen to some of these. So this is a little demonstration of the substance pack for the Digitakt 2 along with the TECHNO drums. Little TECHNO jam. Got some electro in there. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Just a little demonstration of some of the demo presets. You can go and listen to all of those in full and some individual presets as well on the website page. So my name's James Orvis, and I will catch you in the next video.